Hello and welcome to my GBA Season 3 D-League draft analysis. I did do a video telling people that I would be doing this, but yeah, just pretty excited to be finally actually doing this video with a software that's working this time. That's been annoying. Anyway, so the D-League started and the draft happened on Crimson Seabad's stream last Saturday. Go and check that out if you're interested in how everything went down. Going into the draft, I wanted a couple of things. I wanted McGinner, but given that I was 10th, I knew I wasn't getting McGinner, so I set my sights a little bit lower at a different steel type, but still one I think is one of the best in the format, and that is Jirachi. Now, Jirachi, I personally feel like it might be a little overrated, but I do want to try and use it in order to see for myself if it is or isn't overrated. And it does look, I mean, everyone knows what Jirachi does, and considering that I'm somewhat known for being a little bit lucky, there might be an element of Scarf Ironhead every week coming into play here. But no, base 100 stats all around, physical or special, gives me a Stealth Rocker, gives me a U-turner, gives me setup in the form of Calm Mind, obviously it gives me flinching and things like that with Serene Grace, which I love, but generally I feel like Jirachi is just a pick that I couldn't really go wrong with. And I've been struggling a little bit with bringing Stealth Rock a few times, just because my Stealth Rockers aren't one of my best mons, and I just find them often being limited to that role. So one of the things I actively really wanted in this draft was a very good Stealth Rocker, and actually a series of very good Stealth Rockers. And I personally feel like I got a couple of really excellent Stealth Rockers, and I'm happy with the team. I'm happy with the team in general, in all honesty. I feel like it's come along quite well, but I'm happy with that aspect of the team in particular. Now, Jirachi gives me momentum and gives me rocks. It also gives me a really nice steel type. It resists about 8 types and is only weak to things like dark and fire and ground and ghost, if I'm not mistaken, whereas it resists about 8, maybe even 9 types if I'm counting correctly. It gives me an impressive ice immunity, which I feel like, ice resist, which I think is very nice to have, just as a bulk beam answer, because it's bulky enough to be that, and offensively, it might not be as good as it was in Gen 4 and Gen 5, but Jirachi is still going to be amazing offensively so often this season, and I can't wait to actually use it, personally. I'm not expecting it to be, you know, the outright best thing ever, but equally, I was looking at the draft board at that point and just thinking, I don't really know what I want. Tapu Koko had gone, Mew had gone, Kyurem Black I think was gone as well. Hooper Unbound I was thinking about it in terms of as the second pick maybe, but that was gone as well. And obviously McGinner was gone. Mega Kangaskhan was still there, but honestly I don't really like Mega Kangaskhan. I don't think it would suit me in the League format, and honestly I feel like it might be overhyped in terms of how people consider it, and I could have picked it up and it would probably have done well, obviously, because it's still a good mon, I'm not denying that, but it probably wouldn't have done as well as other things might have. And I wanted to make sure that I got everything I needed to get and get good Pokemon for every tier. And I was actually considering for my wheel pick to pick up Salamence. The big thing that actually stopped me from doing that was the fact that I am using that in the NPL, and I like to have variety on my team, on my teams, and I think that of the 11 mons I've drafted, I think that I've only ever used one of them before in Draft League. I might be mistaken and I might have used more than one, but I feel like every mod on this list is a new one aside from one, and we'll get to that one when we get to that one. And I'm excited for that. It's new, and it's the reason I got into Draft League in the first place, to try out different Pokemon. And I don't like drafting things like Darmanitan, Sneasel, Tapu Koko Mens every draft. I don't think that that's ideal. But speaking of wanting to get every tier in, can't really talk for some reason today. Speaking of wanting to get in every single tier in my draft, my next one was my tier 2. Salamence was tier 2, which, I mean, that's kind of wrong in my opinion. But I got something that I consider to be not as good as Mence, but still one of the most powerful breakers in the entire game, and gives me a double Stealth Rock core to start off my team, meaning that I'll always be having options in terms of rocks. Neither of them will be forced into it any week. An amazing ground type and an exceptionally good ice type due to its dual coverage. We got Mamoswine, and Mamoswine is honestly, it's not incredible. I won't lie, it's not incredible. But in my opinion, for what I want it to do, it's gonna be damn near good enough. I mean, 130 base attack stat, it gets the priority in Ice Shard, it gets decent abilities as well in terms of Oblivious, meaning it can't be taunted, and Thick Fat giving it an but a resistance to both Ice and Fire, which I think, well, are personally quite nice. And a resistance to Ice and a neutralness to Fire, I guess. But this is a very good Bolt Beam check, which I tend to struggle with a little bit. And especially in the meta that we're currently in with things like Tapu Koko running around, I wanted something like Mamoswine. I feel like it's an amazing breaker and a Pokemon that really suits me in terms of momentum into heavy threats, and the heavy threats just start breaking. Mamoswine is one of those heavy threats. There's not really a safe switch in the entire game for it. I mean, Cresselia, I guess, but even then, you're going to have to deal with knockoffs and things, and it won't be comfortable at all. But Mamoswine was a mon that I'd wanted to use the entire draft. I picked it up, and I'm very happy with this pick. I know that some people were a little bit, Mamoswine then? I don't know, especially with some of the mons still available, like Mega Kang and Salamence and stuff. But I personally feel like Mamoswine is a fine round 2 pick, especially considering that it wouldn't have come back to me by the end of round 3. I'm pretty confident on that. And regardless, I feel like it's got really genuinely good stats. 110 HP is a nice HP benchmark to reach, because you can make it really genuinely quite fat with that, even though its SpDef and defense aren't ideal. Obviously its defensive typing is lackluster to say the least, but that doesn't exactly matter that much when it comes to Mamoswine, because Mamoswine is there to be doing one thing, and it is not there to be tanking hits at all. Base 80 speed isn't ideal, but it's a speed benchmark I tend to go around anyway. So I don't really mind about that, because having multiple mons in the 80 tier, I don't think it's that bad. 80 is not a bad speed tier. But on the topic of speed tier, well, this next pick was, I think, the only time in the entire draft that I think I got sniped. I got sniped of Shaman, and I wanted Shaman because it was a tier 3 grass type, the same reason I wanted it in the GBA, if you watch my draft analysis for that video. I saw it here and I thought, okay, yeah, I want it again, I want it there. But equally, Shaman was just tragically one pick before me. Shaman got picked up, and I was in a little bit of a mood after that. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted Shaman quite badly. I felt like it was a really, really good budget defensive grass type, and I really didn't know what I was going to get as my defensive grass type, or even as my grass type in general, after then, because Shaman was the one that I had pretty much had my heart set on. But for the rest of the draft, I didn't get sniped, so I'll take that as a nice middle ground. So instead of Shaman, I just basically bumped up all of my picks by one round. I already had a draft plan at this point, and just followed that draft plan up until close to the end, when I was just trying to figure out what the best combination of 3 mons would be. So everything else, I've got everything before those final 3 I had really well planned. The Shaman snipe kind of annoyed me, but oh well. So anyway, the one that I got instead of Shaman was Crobat. Now, Crobat is a mon that I personally love. Crobat, genuinely love Crobat. Nothing at all with its actual abilities or moveset or stats or anything like that. I love it for nostalgia purposes. I had it in Sapphire, and it was my best mon by far. It enabled me to catch the Latis in my first ever playthrough of that game. It's not my favourite mon by far. That actually went to Mawile, but that was because it was my first ever shiny. But Crobat, I just had a lot of nostalgic value for, and ever since I've been in draft leagues, I've wanted to draft Crobat because I know it's an amazing mon, and I really, really, really want to use it. And every single draft it's been taken. Everyone. All of the time I was getting to Crobat and thinking, okay, round 5 Crobat. Round 5 Crobat. Really? You're going to pick round 4 Crobat? Okay, next draft. Round 4 Crobat. We'll go one above. Round 4 Crobat. Come on. What are you doing? But it just kept on going on. And I said to myself, okay, I'm getting Crobat in this league, and I don't care. I do not care one bit if people mock me for how early I take it, because I have never gotten Crobat in a league before, and it is one of my favourite mons. That 130 base speed stat, the decent enough other stats, they're all relatively balanced. All of them, I think they average at 80. Do they? 80, they average just slightly above 80 if you don't include speed. But it's just an incredibly versatile mon. It gives me good defog options. It gives me really nice speed stat. It gives me a good banded mon if I want to make it banded due to the infiltrator ability that it has. Base 90 attack is decent. It gets nasty plot, so suddenly that base 70 special attack isn't looking that bad. The moves it gets: U-turn, Brave Bird, Defog, Cross Poison was one of my personal favorites. Things like Super Fang and Taunt to break down defensive walls. Crobat is just an amazing Pokemon, and one of my personal all-time favorite Pokemon, and I love it so much, and I'm so happy that I'm getting the opportunity to actually use it in the GBA D-League this season, because I've waxed lyrical about it, but this mon is the one that holds nostalgic value to me, and that's the big reason that I actually wanted this mon. Because why not? When else am I going to get the chance? Okay. So aside from that, Crobat just offers me a nice little trio of not trio, but like a nice plethora of things that I kind of wanted. For example, I kind of wanted my ground immunity, wanted defog, wanted decent speed tier, wanted a nice physical attacker with U-turn, things like that. And on the topic of most of those last three things, welcome Mega Beedrill. Now, Mega Beedrill, what can I even say about this mon? 150 attack, 145 base speed with U-turn. I love it. I am so pleased, genuinely so pleased that I get the opportunity to use Mega Beedrill, because in my opinion this is one of the mons that got buffed the most in the transition from Gen 6 to Gen 7, obviously due to the speed boost and the fact that it no longer needs to run Protect, but it is just such an amazing offensive mon. I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. U-turn is perfect for me. I love momentum based moves and mons, and I use them quite well. It gets perfect offensive coverage with just 4 moves in terms of Bug, Poison, Stab, and Drill, Run, and Knockoff. I believe that literally that'll hit everything neutrally, and what's more, I think that I watched a video about this recently, not recently, but like a year and a half ago, talking about how Mega Beedrill could hit everything for 2 times regular damage because of adaptability. With those 4 moves, so I think it gets super effective coverage on everything that resists Bug and Poison. So that's really fun. That's really promising. The 145 base speed kind of makes Crobat, you don't really need that much speed with Crobat and Mega Bee on the team, but I love it anyway. Forces Pokemon like Lopunny to run Jolly. Forces a lot of things. It doesn't run Lopunny to run Jolly, but Mega Sceptile and things will want to speed tie with it and things like that. But the fact that it's so fast, I can make it okay in bulk. So it can take a hit as well as set up SDs. Fell Sting I got a boost. I'm so excited to use Mega Beedrill, and I'm like shaking with excitement. And I know that people can't see me, so that kind of looks a bit weird, but oh well. Mega Beedrill is just an amazing mon. Base, you know the base stats of Mega Beedrill. 150 attack, 145 speed, nothing anywhere else, but those are the two things it needs. So now I've got myself a decent little momentum-based team. I've got 3 U-turners already, and I have a pretty damn powerful breaker in the form of Mamoswine, as well as Mega Beedrill. Like, Mega Beedrill's actually stronger, but still, to go with them. And at this point, I'm wanting more breakers, basically. And one I wanted was a special breaker to pair with my physical breaker in the form of my Mamoswine. And I also wanted a bulky water. Just due to the fact that bulky waters would be kind of nice on my team, because it's kind of developing a couple of pretty exploitable weaknesses. Things like fire, for example, I have 2 weaknesses, 3 if you include Mamoswine, which I don't because of course thick fat, and no resists, and things like that, which are just, you know, not ideal. And it's what seemed to be a nearly perfect partner for them was Primarina. Now, Primarina is a Pokemon with just special attack stat and basically nothing else. Speed is 60, which means that maybe I could run a Trick Room team on one week and have Primarina be my breaker. Not overall expecting that to happen, but oh well. Liquid Voice is pretty useless, unfortunately. If it was Pixelate, I'd be ecstatic about this mon. But 126 base special attack, the highest special attack of any starter Pokemon. Decent stats in terms of all-round. 80, 74, 116 is decent bulk to have, just as a general rule. And the water and the fairy typing, both of which it uses quite well, I feel synergizes really, really well with this team. Pairs genuinely very well with things like Jirachi, which resists almost everything that Primarina doesn't take super effectively. Things like Mamoswine as well, which will eat the Thunderbolts for it. I personally feel like Primarina was a very, very good choice, and the fact that I've got so much momentum into these big threats in terms of Primarina and Mamoswine, I feel like my team is really quite scary at this point. Specs Moonblast, Specs Hydro Pump, even Specs like Surf and Scald and stuff are all really, really, really solid with this Pokemon. It gets coverage in terms of like Ice Beam and Psychic and stuff if I ever need to hit like poison types and Dragonites and stuff. Dragonite even? No, because what else? Tropius. The extent I need to reach to find something else that Ice Beam will hit harder than either just regular Surf or Moonblast is kind of amusing. But regardless, I feel like Primarina is an amazing Pokemon. I'm kind of annoyed by its design. Like, of the Gen 7 starters, the only one whose design I actually kind of like is the Decidueye. But Primarina's okay, and it's not enough to actually put me off actually drafting them on when it is genuinely good. If you play UU, you know how much of a good breaker it is, and it's so very, very nice for my team. It gives me a Dragon immunity, gives me a Dark check, which I was previously kind of lacking, and with, you know, things like Jirachi, you want Dark checks. But regardless, Primarina is amazing. Anyway, next mon I wanted was another Stealth Rock option. And by the way, at this point I have drafted my Tier 1, Tier 2, 2 Tier 3s, my Mega, and I believe that is it. So I want to complete my mandatory tierings, and then, of course, you know, I'm using the GBA graphics, of course. I'm not looking at the graphics when I'm recording these. I'm looking at the Smog on screen so I can have their stats readily available and stuff. But yeah, I want to get on with my Tier 4 and then my Tier 5, and then look into my free points to see what I can do with them. And so next up, I want another rocker. I want something quite bulky. I want something that can generally just be there to be maybe a defensive threat for my opponent to think about. I want things like clerics so that things like paralysis doesn't really screw over my team. I want another fire resist, and hey, there's Miltank. Now Miltank, I personally really quite like Miltank. I play Gen 2 quite a bit, and it's a really good mon there because it can deal with quite a lot of variants of Snorlax and stuff. It gets Curse, which always makes it very nice for me because I always love bringing Curse mons to games, even when they shouldn't be brought. It has, you know, decent stats all round. No special attack to speak of, but you know, every other stat is workable. A base 100 speed because apparently this cow is very fast. You know what a Miltank does. It's meant to be my tier 4 pick, something I'm not going to bring that often, but will be nice occasionally just to relieve pressure from things like my Mamoswine and my Jirachi from having to run rocks. And the fact that it's just an incredible fat thing. Very good abilities in terms of it's got a grass immunity as well as resistance to fire and ice if I choose to customize it in that way. If I choose to run something like a banded Miltank, which I can run Scrappy with it. It's just really, I feel like it's a neat pick. It's not going to be amazing, obviously. This is a tier 4 pick. I actually feel like my tier 5 pick is better than my tier 4 pick. But we'll get to that in a moment. But Miltank is just generally very nice for my team to have. I personally like it a lot, and it's quite a nice little niche Pokemon and can be very useful in some games when it's wanted, because you can make that thing very fat with everything it gets in terms of its stats distribution and its move pool possibilities, and it does the roles that I outlined pretty much perfectly. It will be pretty limited when I come. Don't expect banded Miltank every week, but when it comes even. But hey, it's going to be pretty enjoyable, and it suits the team quite well in my opinion. So anyway, now I have one final mandatory pick, and I have one thing that I really want, and I really want Rotom. Now, Rotom actually ticks a lot of boxes in terms of what I was looking for. It doesn't give me bulk, which the other Rotom forms kind of do, but it gives me a decently speedy electric type, above 91 speed in other words, and I think 90 was the first was a speed tier I was lacking previously, so that's actually very nice to have. And it gives me a Volt Switch user. It gives me resistances to a decent bunch of types in terms of another electric immunity, just a general pivoting answer in general. It'll take not very much to it. Normal and fighting immunities are very nice, especially paired up with Miltank, which obviously doesn't like the fighting type hits. It gives me another flying resist. It gives me... I really like Rotom, and I feel like it is underrated, almost criminally so, because Rotom is genuinely good. You can run Rotom in a number of different offensive ways. Things like Scarf, things like Wisp with Hex, things like Specs I've even seen, and it gives me a Volt Switch option, which I was previously lacking, which is kind of my bad when I'm on a Volt Term team. But the fact that it also gives me things like another immunity to ground, I'm really liking Rotom on my team, and that's why I actually said that I think it's better than my tier 4 pick, in that I think that Rotom will be coming more often than Miltank will. Rotom is an offensive little devil, not very defensive obviously with only 50 HP, but hey, the other Rotoms manage it. And it's just generally a really nice little tool to have. And that was going to be a pun, and I was going to say appliance, but then I backed out of it because that's a terrible joke. But Volt Switching, having an electric mon with Stab, Thunder, well, just Stab electric moves in general is very nice to have. And I personally feel like Ghosts are one of the hardest things to switch into in Generation 7. So having a Ghost type for me was something I really wanted in this draft. I was looking at Cofagrigus briefly, but Cofagrigus doesn't suit me. So, with Rotom on my team, I now have my offensive Ghost type. Now it's time for my check to offensive Ghost types, and for that I've got Persian. Persian Alola, that is. A dark type with things like knockoff, things like parting shot, and again, for the momentum of the team. This is the only mon on the team, I believe, that I have used before, and I really enjoyed Persian the one time I think I've used it before. Technician, I personally feel, is really underrated. Having 90 base power coverage move in the hidden powers is very, very nice. Gets Nasty Plot as well, so that's 75 best special attack. Again, with like Crobat, it's not actually that bad once you consider how that is in reality. Base 115 speed, I was lacking in the speed tier between 100 and 130 before. So now having a Persian to sit in that speed gap is very, very nice for me personally. And just having a Ghost Resist is something I feel like is highly underrated in this in this meta, really. For comparison's sake, I have Lipard in the ICVA. I feel like Persian does Lipard's job just as well as Lipard does it in terms of what I want them to do. And I honestly feel like for a tier 4, which is what this Persian was, I feel like it was a really, really good value pick. And what's more, given that this is now in my free selection thing, picking a good tier 4 or a tier 5, which this wasn't, if it was I would have definitely picked it up sooner, would have been... It frees me up in terms of now I can draft 2 tier 3s and a tier 1 still. So that's something very nice for me. Parting Shot works really well. This is actually one of my 2 Z-move users. The next one is actually the next pick as well, due to the kind of convoluted way they decided to make Z-move selections. So I have Z Parting Shot with this thing as well. That's going to be really, really fun. I will be bringing that at least a few times this season, trust me. But Parting Shot into setup, that's a really, really nice tech, really, really nice combo in my personal opinion, and I can already see Persian winning me games this season. Just in terms of like Fur Coat being a nice stop to almost all physical sweepers, which my team is kind of weak to, being honest. Like Dragon Dance users, Fur Coat, Foul Play is going to be decent. It's just a very, very decent mon all around, and I'm personally very excited for it. So after Persian, I have my other Z-move user, which is Kommo-o. Now, Kommo-o is a Pokemon that when it was announced, I loved it. Okay? I love almost all the pseudo-legendaries. Not Goodra, because that's a bit too defensive for me, but every other pseudo-legendary I love and I love using, and when I saw this thing, I was so excited for it, and then they got rid of Shell Smash, which was kind of, you know, okay. But still, Dragon Dance, Autonomized, the fact that this can go mixed, it can go special, it can go physical only, it's got a very good defense stat, it's got very good abilities actually, like Bulletproof, Overcoat, and Soundproof. I could see myself bringing all 3 of them in the entirety of the season. Bulletproof obviously means that Shadow Ball and things like that can't hit me. Overcoat means I'll be immune to Spore, so I'll have a nice sleep switch into things like Amoonguss and stuff like that, which I think is quite nice. And Soundproof for things like Mega Gardevoir. What more can you want? Because I'm definitely going to switch in my Dragon Fighting to a Mega Gardevoir. That's going to happen. This is my second Z-move user, obviously, because I feel like it gets pretty much all the coverage I want it to get. Like Dragon Fighting, Poison, Steel, Fire, trying to remember other types that this thing gets. What's more, it gets something that I really haven't seen be used in drafts this season, and that's Belly Drum Kommo-o. That's going to be fun if it works. And I actually feel like I could see it working just because of how fat it is. Because 75, 125, 105, that's fat. So if I go uninvested in attack and go really bulk invested, Autonomize and Belly Drum with one of the new Ayapapa berries, if that works this season, I will love it so, so much, because I love the idea of that. Just the idea of setting up in that way is just already getting me excited, and you can probably hear the smile in my voice. So yeah, that's gonna be quite fun in my opinion. And it's one of the ones that I really wanted to use in the NPL, and then I got the opportunity to use Ments, and I kind of just thought, yeah, I'll take Mence over Komodo because Mence is better as a mon. But I feel like as a dragon, as the final mon in my Fairy Dragon Steel core of Komodo, Primarina, and Jirachi, I feel like it suits them quite decently. The other two both resist everything that Komodo is weak to. Things like flying, things like fairy, things like the other types that it's weak to, ice and psychic. Thank you, Smogon. They all, those two resist most of, all of them, in fact, and in several cases they resist all of them multiple times, like ice, psychic, with Primarina and Jirachi. I have decent resistances to them in almost every way. And it's just a mon that I personally really fell in love with and I really want to use in draft because I feel like it's so very versatile. 85 speed isn't the best, but hey, can't have everything, otherwise it would be Mega Rayquaza. But yeah, that's what I really enjoy about Komodo and why I picked it up this season. So finally, for my final two picks, I decided that I wanted a fire type and a grass type, because having a good Fairy Dragon Steel core is, in my opinion, the best thing, but then having a Fire Water Grass core is the second best thing in my book, because I feel like those two cores I will never go without, because I feel like offensively, and even defensively, they synergize so well together that it's kind of unbelievable. So what I wanted was, I wanted breakers, and I wanted setup threats and things like that, and I have enough points at this stage to get a tier 3 and a tier 1. And the tier 3s that I was looking at were things like Chandelure, or things like kind of Darmanitan, but then that got picked up really early in the draft. I was kind of also looking at, what else was I looking at? I was kind of looking at Alolan Marowak, which I've used before, obviously. I was also looking at, I was looking briefly at Whimsicott and then getting something like a Heatran, but decided against that because I just didn't like it. And in the end, I decided to go with my tier 3 first, because I knew that no one could snipe me of my tier 1 pick at this point, and I decided to go with my fire type as well, and that was Emboar, because find me a switch-in. Go on, I've got such a good Volturn team already, like find me a switch-in to Banded Reckless Emboar. I'll wait, don't worry. This gives me an ideal Scarfer. I actually feel like it's an amazing Scarfer. It gives me very good coverage in terms of Wild Charge, Flare Blitz, Head Smash. All of them are recoil moves, which is the downside to it, but I can deal with that given how powerful it is with that 123 base attack and the Reckless ability. Having a second fighting type in a row, I actually didn't realize that I was doing that, but I personally don't mind that at all. I feel like fighting is a type that I can afford to try and stack, because I feel like it's generally just good as an offensive breaking type. I feel like fighting is kind of amazing. Not as good as Bird, obviously, but Bird spam is kind of hard to get. And Emboar is just an amazing choice, in my personal opinion. Just Banded, Flare Blitz is hard to switch into, especially combined with things like Superpower and Wild Charge to hit things like Bulky Waters and Dragons on the switch in. Head Smash for flying types, and I cover this really very well, in my personal opinion, with the rest of my team. It's obviously weak. It is weak to flying, which is the thing that I think my team is most weak to at this point. But even saying that, I've still got Jirachi, and I've still got sorry, one second. I've still got Jirachi, and I've still got Rotom as well. And not only that, I've also got Ice Shard from Mamoswine. I can deal with having a little bit of a flying weakness as well, because the other teams in the league didn't draft amazing flying types at this point. Like, I was looking at people like the Don Fnatic, I was looking at people like Jolt, and in my personal opinion, the flying types that were drafted, with the exception of like Halucha, which is kind of just a massive threat to me, I felt like I could deal with most, if not all, of the flying types. Then, of course, like Then, of course, Don Fnatic picked up Staraptor in the last round, but oh well. Ember is a really, really amazing Pokemon in my opinion, just as an offensive breaker. I feel like it pairs well with the rest of my team. As I said, I wanted the Fire, the Water, and the Grass core, both offensively and defensively. I wanted a Grass type so that I could actually deal with Zygardes, because, spoiler, I can't, not yet. Thankfully, only one Zygarde got drafted, so, you know, I'm pretty pleased about that. But, I mean, Zygarde 10% could always be picked up in the free agency. And for my final pick of the GBA, I wanted a Grass type, I wanted an offensive Grass type, I wanted an offensive Grass type that can actually deal with Zygarde, and I had enough points for a tier 1. In other words, I had a choice to make, and I had a choice to make basically between Tapu Bulu, which I ended up not picking. I didn't like the idea of having Tapu Bulu on this team, in part just because I'm using it in the ICBA, and one of my Fairy Dragon Steel core is already a Fairy type, and I don't feel like having a double Fairy type in one of my in my Fire, Water, Grass core. I just feel like that's kind of inviting weaknesses to that core, which I don't really want to deal with. So basically, I only had one real option, and it's a mon that I feel like works well with the rest of my team. It's a good setup mon with its signature, well, not signature, but its most spammable move, and that is Superior. Now, Superior as a tier 1 Pokemon, when I've got the points for it, I'll take it. Like, that's a very good tier 1. First of all, it's a very, very good Grass type, and when I got sniped with Shaman early on in the draft, I didn't exactly think I'd be getting a Grass type this good. Up until very, very close to the end of the draft, I was thinking, okay, I'll get Whimsicott, and then I'll get a Fire type from tier 3, and then I'll just get something good from tier 1. Like I'll get maybe a Victini, maybe a Terrakion, or something like that. Victini didn't get drafted, by the way. Kind of amusing considering, like, you know, I've got Jirachi. I was looking at Victini, but then the multiple ghost weaknesses on the team already kind of made me not want to pick it up. Just because, like, switching into things like Gengar and stuff would be next to impossible. Especially given that they were all slower than Gengar and things like that. So I felt like Superior really fit the balance of the team. It gives me a speed benchmark I kind of had covered with Persian, but this is a more bringable version of Persian. Really, really bulky for such an offensive Grass type, due to the fact that it was designed terribly, in my opinion, and it needed the contrary ability to actually make it worth anything. But Leaf Storm giving me a free nasty plot boost, I'll take that every day of the week. This, I feel like, is one of the very, very good cleaners of the generation. I feel like it's very, very good as a late game cleaner. Obviously, it can always deal with things like Zygarde's, most ground types in general. The fact that it's naturally so bulky means it can take a lot of earthquakes, and it doesn't have that many weaknesses for Pokemon to try and capitalize. Pokemon to try and capitalize on, especially the Pokemon that are going to be clicking Earthquake, because not that many Pokemon get Earthquake if they are also one of the types that Superior is weak to, like Ice. I've already got Mamoswine, so that's one out. Flying. Do flying monsters learn Earthquake aside from Charizard and stuff? I don't think so. But even then, like, ground types is what I'm thinking of. They don't normally get U-turn. They don't normally get Fly. They don't normally get Overheat and other such moves that hit Superior actually hard enough to dent it. And with Synthesis, yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. It gives me a good water type check as well, which I was kind of lacking on the rest of my team. I mean, I had offensive checks to them, but, like, switching in was pretty much a nightmare because my only real resist before now was Primarina. But yeah, Superior is an amazing mon. I personally love it, and I hope that you all enjoy it too this season. So that is the draft done. As I already mentioned, my Z-move users are Kamoo and Alolan Persian for this season. So let me know in the comments what you think of this team, because I'm really excited to use it. And in other news, week 1 goes up this Saturday. Or no, not this Saturday, this Sunday. I keep mixing up the dates because I'm Australian. Not Australian, but I'm living in Australia. And yeah, so enjoy that on Sunday. I know I will, personally. I have already played that game. so I don't need to worry about giving away my text to that game in this draft analysis, which I don't think I meant to do. But still, I personally really enjoy the makeup of this team. I feel like it's ideal for me. A bunch of U-turning and momentum-based mons with Volt Switch and Parting Shot from the two that don't get U-turn, into breakers like Superior, like Embor, like Primarina, like Mamoswine. The balance of Stealth Rockers I've got with 3 viable ones to bring in almost every matchup, with 2 of them almost certainly coming in almost every matchup. The combination of my 2 cores in terms of Fire, Water, Grass and Fairy Dragon Steel, I feel like I've done quite a good job in drafting this team. So yeah, let me know what you think of it down below, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.